Every time the Adani Group is accused of corruption or favoritism by the Modi government, the defense usually boils down to two things. Adani's growth is India's growth, and that the group has never been convicted of any of the charges. But this time, things have escalated. The US government has accused the Adani Group of bribing Indian officials over $250 million to secure solar energy contracts at inflated rates. And this isn't just a vague allegation. It names Gautam Adani himself and his nephew Sagar Adani. And this changes everything. So why is the US involved? What does the indictment say? And how does this impact the Adani Group? And more importantly, how does this impact your and my life? Because if these allegations are true, it's not just about Adani. It's about India paying a price that will hit all of us very directly. Let me explain. Gautam Adani's empire, which started off in Gujarat, now spans across the country and 6 other countries. In 24 years, the group's turnover soared from 3,300 crores to over 3 lakh crores. That's stupendous growth. But here's the issue. The growth is shadowed by allegations of favoritism by both union and state governments. Now, before we go down that rabbit hole, let me remind you that we don't take money from big corporations or governments. That's why we can ask tough questions and not just echo their talking points. With so many news channels owned or backed by big corporations, the need for independent journalism is more than ever. You can do your part to support organizations like the News Minute and News Laundry by becoming proud subscribers. I'll come back to the accusations against the Adani Group in just a bit, but let's first address how this impacts you and me. The US Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, has said that the Adani Group has offered bribes to state governments to buy solar energy at inflated prices. Who ends up paying a higher power tariff because of all this? Us, the consumers. Higher electricity bills push up our household expenses. And when factories face higher costs, they simply shut down or pass on that expense to the customers. On top of that, state governments, many of which are already financially strained, end up absorbing these higher costs. That's state resources which could have been used to build better infrastructure, maybe better government schools or even better hospitals. But instead, this gets spent on overpriced energy. And who ends up benefiting? And looking at the big picture, this could hurt India's future. Let me tell you how. India's air pollution crisis, especially in cities like Delhi and large part of North India, is largely driven by coal-fired power plants. Corruption in the energy sector slows down our shift to cleaner alternatives like solar and wind. If global investors see India's market as corrupt, they could hold back from funding or investing our renewable energy projects. But this isn't the first time Adani has faced accusations like this. Take Tamil Nadu, for example. Reports claim Adani sold low-grade coal at inflated prices, almost $92 per ton instead of $28. And low-grade coal, like I said, was passed off as high-grade coal. So this didn't just cost taxpayers more money, it also led to more pollution. So higher bills, fewer resources for public services, and a slower transition to clean energy. All this if the allegations against Adani are true. Wait. Other allegations of corruption surrounding the Adani Group too has had a cascading effect on all our lives, like the time when the group was accused of share price inflation. If Adani did inflate share prices as is being alleged, it doesn't just hurt investors, it also risks destabilizing banks. I'll tell you how. The Hindenburg and the OCCRP reports accused Adani of using offshore shell companies to manipulate stock prices. And critics argue that this tactic misleads investors and secures undue advantages like loans and investments for Adani. When you and I go to a bank for a loan, we usually ask for a collateral, right? Presently, based on reports in public domain, the Adani Group has borrowed around 1.8 to 2 lakh crores from banks like SBI, ICICI and HDFC. In Adani Group's case, they've secured these large loans by offering their shares as collateral. But if those share prices are artificially inflated, as the reports have suggested, it means that loans that they got were much bigger than they actually should have been. So if the allegations are true, the Adani Group ended up getting a much bigger share of the bank's money. And since banks have only a limited amount to lend, this means that other businesses that were deserving might have been denied loans while Adani got much more money. In the future, if the Adani Group struggles and can't repay, the bank takes a loss. You remember Kingfisher, right? The airline had used its brand value as collateral, but when the brand's value dropped, the banks couldn't recover their money. A similar situation could potentially happen with Adani shares. People who bought Adani shares in the market could lose out, and the banks could also lose out a lot of money. If the losses are huge, then there is also a risk that the money from regular depositors like you and me are being impacted. Before I go further, if you're finding this explainer useful, don't forget to subscribe and support independent journalism. We are here to bring you facts and no spin or no corporate influence. Now to what the indictment is all about. It is, by the way, a US form of a charge sheet. In 2019, the Solar Energy Corporation of India, that's SECI, announced a massive project of 12 gigawatts of solar power and 3 gigawatt of manufacturing capacity. SECI acts as a middle person connecting private power producers with state-run electricity companies or DISCOMs. What made this deal unique was that it wasn't just on power generation, but it also said that companies will set up manufacturing units for solar cells and modules. Adani Green and Azure Power won the bids. But the state DISCOMs found the prices too high and refused to buy. That's when, according to the SEC, the bribery started. So why is the US involved in all this? What are the bribery allegations? The SEC alleges that in 2021, Adani Green offered bribes to state governments. And after this, Odisha allegedly agreed to buy 500 megawatts after receiving thousands of dollars. Other states like Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh and Jammu and Kashmir reportedly followed. But the biggest buyer was Andhra Pradesh. Of the 2,029 crores allegedly offered as bribes, 1,750 crores alone was to Andhra Pradesh. And because Adani and Azure raised money through US bonds, the SEC says this money was used to pay bribes in India, and this violates the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. So the crime is that though Azure and Adani claim in their prospectus for the bonds that they're anti-bribery, they raise money in the United States to pay bribes in India. If the charges are proven, then a fine up to 4 billion and prison terms up to 20 years could be levied. But let's remember, these are just charges as of now. But as the indictment progresses and more evidence comes up, SEBI in India can order a probe, and so can other agencies. Adani claims he hasn't been charged with bribery, and technically he is right. Non-US citizens can't be charged under the FCPA, but the indictment does accuse him on other counts. But the global fallout has already started for Adani. Kenya has cancelled 2 key Adani deals. GQG Partners, which supported Adani during the Hindenburg controversy, saw its share price drop by 23%. Global ratings agency Moody's downgraded Adani Group's rating from stable to negative. And the French energy giant Total Energies has paused new investment in Adani Group. Look, the group's growth rests on 3 pillars: relentless expansion into new industries, acquisitions, and debt-driven growth. And each of these have faced allegations of irregularities. But as journalist Raj Shekhar writes in Article 14, this is the first time Adani has faced such a massive accusation of quid pro quo. The BJP has been quick to dismiss this and pointed out that all 5 states implicated were ruled by opposition parties at the time. But will the BJP-led NDA government order a probe into Adani? That's the big question. But don't hold your breath. Instead, as you move away from this video, click on the link in the description below and become a paid TNM subscriber.